if a cabin appeared only when it wanted to, and never let you leave? Welcome back to True Terror Files, where we explore the darkest, most mysterious true-style horror experiences. Tonight's story is one that questions reality itself. A tale sent in by a hiker who stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist. Let's call him Mark. Mark was an experienced woodsman, someone who knew the trails of the Blackwood National Forest like the back of his hand. But one late autumn afternoon, as the sun began its descent, he found himself on a path he didn't recognize. The air grew still, the usual forest sounds muffled by a sudden, thick fog that rolled in without warning. It was then he saw Ita's small, rustic cabin nestled in a clearing he was sure wasn't there before. Smoke curled lazily from its stone chimney, a silent invitation in the desolate landscape. He said his gut screamed at him to turn back, but a strange, compelling curiosity pulled him forward. The cabin looked ancient yet perfectly preserved, as if time itself had forgotten it. As he approached, the feeling of being watched intensified. He scanned the tree line, catching fleeting movements in his peripheral vision, dark shapes that melted into the shadows the moment he tried to focus on them. He brushed it off as tricks of the failing light, his mind playing games in the eerie silence. The heavy oak door was slightly ajar. He called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" But only the wind answered, whistling through the eaves. Pushing the door open, he stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of pine, wood smoke, and something else. Something metallic and vaguely sweet, like old blood. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. A single rocking chair swayed gently, as if its occupant had just left. On a small, dusty table, a half-empty mug of what looked like tea was still warm to the touch. He felt an immediate, overwhelming sense of intrusion, of stepping into a place he was not meant to be. He turned to leave, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang that shook the entire cabin. He lunged for the handle, twisting and pulling with all his might, but it was useless. It was as if the door had been sealed from the outside. Panic began to claw its way up his throat. He pounded on the wood, his shout swallowed by the thick, insulated walls. That's when he noticed the windows. They were dark, reflecting the cabin's interior like black mirrors. But his reflection wasn't alone. Standing behind him, just over his shoulder, was the faint outline of a figure, tall, gaunt, its features lost in shadow. He spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. But when he looked back at the window, the figure was still there, its head tilted slightly, watching him. He backed away, his heart hammering against his ribs. In every reflective surface, the glass panes, a tarnished silver mirror on the wall, even the polished surface of the table, he saw them. An entire family of shadow people, standing motionless, their presence a suffocating weight in the small space. He said time began to warp. The fire in the hearth would die down to embers and then roar back to life in the span of a breath. Through the windows, he saw the sun and moon chase each other across the sky in a dizzying, rapid cycle of day and night. Days, maybe weeks, flew by in what felt like minutes. Yet, inside the cabin, nothing changed. The tea in the mug never grew cold. The rocking chair never stopped its gentle, rhythmic sway. The shadow figures were his constant, silent companions. Whispers started to fill the silence. They came from the walls, the floorboards, the very air around him. Faint, overlapping voices speaking in a language he didn't understand. Yet he could feel their meaning, a chorus of sorrow, regret, and a chilling, possessive hunger. He saw fleeting images in the corners of his eyes. A woman's terrified face in the flames. A child's handprint appearing and fading on a dusty pane of glass. A man's silhouette hanging from the rafters for just a split second. He realized he wasn't just trapped in a cabin. He was trapped in a memory, a repeating echo of a tragedy that had unfolded here long ago. His mind started to fray. The line between reality and hallucination blurred into non-existence. He would find himself talking to the shadows, pleading with them, asking them what they wanted. They never answered, but their dark, featureless faces seemed to watch with a sort of cold, detached curiosity. He felt his own identity slipping away, being replaced by the overwhelming despair that saturated the cabin. He was becoming part of the echo. Then, one moment or perhaps a lifetime later, he found himself lying on the forest floor, damp leaves clinging to his face. The sun was rising, casting a warm golden light through the trees. The fog was gone. The air was clear and filled with the morning songs of birds. He scrambled to his feet, his body aching and weak. He looked back to where the cabin had stood. There was nothing, just an empty clearing, covered in undisturbed moss and fallen leaves. It was as if it had never been there at all. He stumbled back to the main trail, a journey that took only 10 minutes. When he finally made it back to his car, he checked his phone. It was the same day he had left, only a few hours later. He had lost maybe 4 hours, not the weeks he thought he'd endured, but the experience had left its mark. He said he still sees the shadow figures in reflections, watching him from just beyond the veil. And on quiet nights, when the wind blows just right, he can still hear the whispers carried on the breeze. Some places are not meant to be found. They wait in the dark spaces of the world, hungry for new stories, new souls to add to their collection. Mark was lucky. He escaped, but the cabin is still out there, somewhere in the woods, waiting for the next lost hiker to see the smoke rising from its chimney. Thanks for joining us for another tale from True Terror Files. If you have an unexplainable story you want to share, send it to us. Subscribe for more, and remember to be careful where you wander. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again.